European countries, in particular, have expressed European countries, including the UK, have expressed their interest in further supporting Ukraine militarily, and particularly Keir Starmer has given a big pack of help to Ukraine. I believe that was in billions of
3.2 billion, I think.
dollars, of pounds.
Hmm.
So what do you think of that? Do you think that money is rightly being directed to Ukraine, or that money should have been redistributed to some of the areas the country really needs now?
I mean, as sympathetic as I am with the cause for helping the Ukrainian people,
And be careful, I'm Ukrainian.
oh, well, all right, no, yeah. As sympathetic as I am, I think we've got too many problems at home to be starting to try and police the world. Um, the United States is in a bit more of is in a much more economic position to do that, but they're much more driven towards ending the war.
They don't seem to be looking to fund it more.
Yeah, and that's the thing is that uh, this is why I have a big problem with people like Boris Johnson, for example, who were the first ones to send aid packages, military packages in, and what do we have to show for it? Nobody's talking about peace anymore. It's only Trump in the United States that's talking about peace. Keir Starmer's certainly not interested in it. European Union certainly aren't interested in it, and so I think we need to be more interested in it ourselves.
Well, that's the thing, and it's also hard to say at which stage is NATO, and which stage is the preparedness of the UK to fight countries like Russia potentially. What's the stage of the military in your country?
I mean, our military is in a very dire situation because we've neglected our veterans and our armed service personnel for so long now that I don't think nobody truly believes that we can defend our borders if we're attacked. But I think one of the reasons I try not to talk about war and conflict so much is because I'm very anti-war. I very much share the sentiment that RFK Jr. in the United States, the health secretary, shares, which is that we need to be more driven towards peace. Why are we so focused on war? And it's one of the biggest moneymakers. The two biggest moneymakers in our society, where the share price of these companies never go down, is military companies and big pharma. Those are the two major industries in which is always profitable.
Military was literally the first industry that introduced fiat,
Yeah,
introduced money as a whole.
yeah,
Before, people were trading with I give you uh, something, some food,
yeah,
and you give me a cloth,
yeah.
and there was no currency,
Mm,
but the war as a whole changed that. But let's move away a bit from the global politics and focus more on the country,
yeah.
especially on your party, as I can see that a lot of people are drawing the comparison between Nigel Farage, your party leader, and Donald Trump. Do you think they're similar in some way? And what's the prospects of Nigel Farage as a leader?
Oh, well, I think they're similar in the fact that they're both standing up for working people's values and working people's livelihoods. They're driven towards making sure that people keep more of their own money. They're driven towards safer streets, strong borders. These are all the things that our governments are not talking about and have failed to act on for decades. Immigration has got massively out of control in this country. Unfortunately, we're not in a situation where we can just build a wall and stop everyone from coming in. But we are in a situation where if we make sure that this is a Navy operation, not an RNLI issue, we can actually take more control from that point of view. If we want to make our streets safer, we can put more police involved, give the police more powers to deal with things. And there's so many similarities that they have. There's many things that they feel differently about. For example, the Chagos Islands. Trump is seeming to be more pro, giving the Chagos Islands away. And Nigel Farage is obviously, we shouldn't be giving away our territory, quite frankly, when it tactically suits China and a lot of our adversaries. But I think they have a lot in common. But what they have in common is all good, I think.
At which stage do you think is the party as a whole? Because over the last days, I think the party has been exposed to a conflict between Nigel Farage and uh, Rupert Lowe.
That's correct.
And that's quite disturbing for people. Must be quite disturbing for people inside of the party, because now they, in a way, have to choose who to support here. or do you not have to choose?
I've got a lot of respect for Rupert Lowe. I think he's a very outspoken, very committed, and very dedicated MP. He's done a lot of good, and he's championed a lot of very key issues. Particularly farmers, protecting our farmers in this country from the farming tax and things like that. Introduced by Keir Starmer. He's done a lot for working people. He's done a lot for small business. But I think his public criticism of Nigel Farage, which caused this whole palaver, in my opinion, probably should have been done in private before happening in public.
Yeah.
Now, the ins and outs of that, I'm not 100% sure. The conduct of the leadership also is a massive thing to be considered because, there's reports today from certain former members of parliament which suggest that the claims are not true. They were just spread out. Now, we don't have enough information to draw any proper conclusions and diagnosis as to what happened. But my only advice to the senior leadership and to people in the party is to stay put and try and get focus on tackling the issues of the day rather than party politics. Country before party, and that's what we believe in. So hopefully they take that advice.
Where do you think we're going with this? How is this conflict going to be resolved? And if it is going to be resolved?
I think it will. I'm not sure as to how. I'm not quite sure what's going to happen to Rupert. I hope they keep him on board, and I hope they come to an amicable agreement because he's a talented guy. He's a very talented individual, very intelligent, very capable.
He's been quite important for the party.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of 5 MPs for Christ's sake. We were suddenly 5-4. That's a big loss. That's a very big loss. Losing a fifth-year MPs. But I hope we keep him on board, and I hope we can come to a proper agreement because it'd be sad to lose him.
But I think one of the biggest questions that voters nowadays have that are about to choose reform over the Conservatives or reform over the Labour Party in the next election, potentially, they're asking, but why do I have to choose reform? What do you guys have to offer as opposed to the standard leadership of Labour or Conservative? Because for many years, this dynamic of two parties in the country has been going on, and now reform, I assume it's quite hard for people to find the courage to vote for another party rather than the established framework of voting for one of the two.
Hmm. I think one of the things that we need to make sure that we're doing properly is show as many traditional Conservative voters that we're the party, or we're the right wing traditional party in this country. The Conservatives aren't Conservative anymore. That's a baseline fact that actually a lot of people still in the Conservative Party still do agree with. They've got some brilliant campaigners. They've got some great MPs. But unfortunately, the party's direction and the party's values and the party's reputation, shall we say, on policy and things like that over the last 14 years, it doesn't stand up to scrutiny.
It's going to be extremely hard to forget for the voters.
Yeah.
That 14 years of leadership.
I mean, I got to a point where I felt like I was lying to people on the doorsteps campaigning for the Conservatives.
In which sense?
Well, in the sense that on taxation, for example, the first tax cut we introduced, I think it was national insurance, taking it down. But we increased tax to the highest burden since the war. And so it's like, yeah, we've cut taxes, but actually we've increased them by record levels previously. And that contradiction was something that stuffed up my family, for example. So I'm telling people that we're going to help your family, but actually the reality is not only is everybody's families getting poorer, but so is mine. And that was a reality that was really tough to take because I believed in values of hard work, small business, protecting pensioners. But what did I have to show for it? Everyone was poorer. And so that's why I could no longer be in that party. And I think if we can show people the reality that the Conservatives put us in and the short-term future that Labour are foreshadowing for us, that's how we win. And that's how we show people that this is no longer a two-horse race. And that's how we show people that we're going to change the direction that our country's going in.
What Nigel Farage in particular and his party has been vastly criticized for is introducing the plan of tax cuts, which will increase the deficit and the amount of money they will have to pay for that plan, which, in the opinion of many people, is simply impossible to fund that tax cut for the economy of the UK now. Do you subscribe under that vision of decreasing taxes despite the economy not doing so well?
No, and that's definitely a longer term issue. I think, for example, with cutting things like net zero, we can save billions. Just I think some of the figures indicate up to 20 billion we can save. Almost as big as the supposed black hole that there is. We can save billions through
Why not funding it, you mean?
yes, and it's not that the way that you protect your environment is not by taxing people to death and introducing ULEZ, for example.
Well, they need the money to, redirect to these environmental issues.
Well, that's the thing is that they've got no evidence of telling everyone where the money's going. No one knows. Other than the 100 million bat shed they built for HS2, 100 million on a bat shed, and these are the kind of money that we're using to protect our environment and invest in infrastructure. It's nonsense. So the tax cut claims, I think, we need to cut taxes, and we need to create an environment in which we can do that first. I think no one at Reform UK it disputes that point ever, because the Conservatives left us in a very dire economic position, and Labour are basically in power to finish the job. So we need to create the environment first, a low tax, low inflation environment, and then we cut taxes.